serve all Ghanaians. We're also working in collaboration. We work in collaboration with other community welfare groups in the UK and other nursing associations within the UK.
Thank you. And also still with Mrs. Martha-Nugent, could you tell us a bit about what the role of GNA UK is in supporting international nurses and midwives, please?
Okay. Our role, GNA's role in supporting internationally educated midwives is to support them with mentoring, nurturing, coaching, and support them with their preparation for their OSCEs and IELTS. Again, we support these nurses to integrate into the British way of practicing nursing. We integrate them into the culture for them to familiarize themselves so that they don't feel left out. We also provide them a buddy system where you have someone allocated to you whom you can call on if you get stuck on anything. We have a leaflet that we circulate, and I'm sure you can see the leaflets with Irene at the back.
Yes.
Tells you all about what we do to support internationally educated nurses. Again, we have a handbook which the cohort group of the pastoral care have developed, and we send this to all nurses who have been involved or whom we have been involved with, for them to go through it and study the policies and guidelines working in the UK. We haven't really had much engagement with our Ghanaian nurses. They tend to come to us when they have problems, and when the issue resolves, we don't hear from them. You cannot join GNA if you are not on the NMC register. You have to be on the NMC register to join GNA. But you can join our pastoral team for us to give you the support that you need. There's nothing like coming into this country unprepared and not knowing whom or where to turn for support. So basically, what we are doing is supporting our nurses. How are we supporting them? What made us decide to support internationally educated nurses? As you all know, there's been a lot of issues with recruitment. There's a high percentage of vacancies, and Ghanaian nurses are being recruited. It looks as if in the last 2 years, over 2,000 Ghanaian nurses have been employed. Some of them are doing very well, some of them are struggling, and it doesn't matter if you are doing well or struggling. Yes. Find us and we will support you. We were granted funding by the NHS England and Florence Nightingale specifically to support the internationally recruited nurses from Ghana. We are members of the International Nurses and Midwives Association, and we have been liaising with the other associations. They have also been signposting nurses to us. So our main aim this evening is to encourage nurses to signpost internationally educated nurses to her. Please do not wait to find those who are struggling. If you come across any Ghanaian educated nurse who has recently arrived in the UK, just refer them to the pastoral team. Just refer them to Ghana nurses, and the pastoral team will pick them up. So, but there is something that I would like to emphasize, and that is about, there are a lot of rumors going on about how GNA is collaborating with the Ghana government and the NHS England to recruit Ghanaian nurses from Ghana to exploit them. That is not the case. There is an embargo, which I have mentioned on many occasions, that the WHO has put Ghana on the red alert because we are perceived to have an unstable health system. But if the nurse applies to a hospital and the hospital accepts the nurse and the nurse comes in, yes, we can support the nurse, but we are not involved in recruitment. We have no affiliation with the Ghana government as to who is coming in and who is not coming in. So please let me just explain that to each and every one of us here, because it looks as if a lot of people are very confused about how the nurses are coming in. They can only come in if GNA is involved. GNA is not involved. And this evening, we are not here to discuss any government. GNA is not politically affiliated, so we are not discussing any government about what they're doing right and what they're not doing right. What we want is to support our nurses when they come in. Most of us are internationally educated nurses, and we know what we went through when we came here. Hence the commitment to support nurses who are coming in. How they come in is got nothing to do with GNA. Some of them are coming by agencies. Agencies are supporting them with all that they need. But please remember, GNA is not recruiting. So I leave that now for my colleagues to put in their bits.
Thank you, Mrs. Martin-Nugent, for making it clear and also explaining the role that Ghana Nursing Association UK is playing in supporting those who have come here as international educated nurses and midwives. Thank you. So I'll move on to our second panelist. And I think, Joe, in your opinion, what are some of the barriers that you have faced in supporting the international educated nurses?
Thank you, Sister Rebecca. In the internationally educated nurses face so many barriers. As you know, when they come into this country, they have come into a different environment altogether. So there is a language barrier for some of them. There is communication difficulties because some of them do not understand the terminology of how some people communicate. For example, I need a kappa, for example, as simple as that. And then they find themselves, what are they telling them to do? There are also difficulties like differences in the culture. So the differences in the culture, they have come into this country and the weather is changed from a hot country into cold country, winter, and they have to change their clothes. There's also differences in the practice. Yes, they are registered nurses or registered midwives, But when they come over here, some of the equipments and the gadgets that they use in the hospitals or in the care home or in some of the service users' homes, they are not used to it. So these are some of the challenges they face. They also face some challenges like lack of recognition, because the person comes, the person might be a nursing sister, ward sister, or a physician assistant, and they've come over to work as a support worker. So there is that culture shock that, oh yes, when I was in Ghana, I was up there, and now I have to come and start from the bottom.
Yeah.
And some of the them are not used to the way our shift system are. So some of them face things like maybe your shift, maybe when they were in Ghana, they were working Monday to Friday, they don't do weekends, or they do 3 shifts, but then sometimes they have their shift cancellation, or they have to cover the 12-hour shift. Is completely a culture shock to them, because they are used to working in the morning and then coming home maybe 2 o'clock or whatever, and now they are doing 8 to 8 or and that sort of thing. So these are some of the barriers that they do face when they come in, not knowing where things are. Clothings is also part of it, accommodation is part of it. So the whole system, how they have to come and live in a complete different system, is that as well. They also face psychologically, emotional system. They've left their loved ones and they have come over, so they feel isolated as well. So these are some of the barriers that they face when they come. So we see them as going around normal person, but there is a lot that goes through their head that, you need to get closer to them and support them to see that, yes, they are getting the balance right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you find some of them breaking down mentally, or, being on the verge of committing suicide.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's quite a lot, isn't it? Like you said,
Yeah.
it could be a cultural shock,
Yeah.
leaving your loved one back
Mm.
home, and sometimes you think everything will be straightforward, but there is
Yeah.
that need for that support in order
Yeah.
to make the challenges a bit less stressful for them. Thank you.
And I even forgot another important one, financial as well, because when they come in, until they have worked for some time, I know that at the moment there are some in the system that they haven't worked for some time, and their financial is also a big issue. Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Abebiu. Thank you. Now I'll move on to our Miss Irene Boham. Please, can you tell us about your experience as an international educated nurse and being a fairly new member, and how beneficial have you found GNA? I think you have to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Right, so as an internationally educated nurse, as some of you might be aware, it is not easy when you come to a new country altogether that you haven't traveled to before. And Auntie Jo has kindly elaborated on some of the barriers that internationally educated nurses face. Being an internationally educated nurse, of course, can be extremely daunting, difficult mentally and emotionally, especially without support, as I found myself many years ago. And in fact, I'm actually pleased that They are now formal pastoral support for internationally educated nurses through the NHS England and through the Florence Nightingale Foundation. When I came, I quite remember that I was in my letter, it said, you should bring warm clothes. And at the time, I wasn't aware of what a duvet is. I wasn't aware of the very warm clothes that you need here. So I brought myself a fairly warm cardigan. And then I realized that, oh, there's more to it than that. What they actually meant was duvet and coat that provides a bit of warmth, something better than a basic cardigan. So it was very tough. Again, I found settling very, very difficult. Accommodation was a nightmare. Even something as basic as trying to get national insurance number was difficult because, of course, in Ghana, qualified, working, there was nothing like applying for a national insurance number. So it was by chance that I got stopped by a government official, said I was going to work and said, oh, they asked me a few questions and included in that was, oh, have you got a national insurance number? And I was like, what is that? So they signposted me, gave me a note to go to the job center at the time to apply for one. So yeah, that was very, very difficult. And in fact, I actually wish that I had something like Ghana Nurses Association to fall on that time. But yeah, I faced a lot of challenges. At that time, we did an adaptation course. It was to register with the NMC again, the route was a bit different to what it is now. So the adaptation course, again, you had to find out yourself, apply to an organization that would support you. Again, it was difficult, but if I had something like GNA, it would have helped. So there were quite a lot of challenges, and even being signposted, I mean, you find out by chance, and then somebody supports you. I've suffered, of course, emotionally, and there was nobody to turn to formally. But yeah, so you had to just get through yourself. But for the support that GNA provides at the moment, of course, as I mentioned earlier on, I'm fairly new in GNA. I'm a member of the pastoral team. And in fact, whilst I wouldn't say I'm a new internationally educated nurse, whilst I'm an internationally educated nurse, obviously I've been here for many years, but I find GNA still extremely useful. There is always somebody you can go to. I mean, GNA has members who work in the NHS, nurse educators who work in the social and private sectors, in research, academia, and as private nurse entrepreneurs. So there's always somebody that you can go to. I already feel so much like, I mean, I have a very good network of support, socially and professionally. I mean, you can approach any of them, Auntie Martha, to Rebecca, to Vivian, Auntie Jo, and any of them would support you. I find also that members benefit from discussions on issues that affect us collectively. So obviously, most of us have experienced the difficulties that internationally educated nurses and midwives experience. We understand the Ghanaian culture. We understand if they explain to us that, oh, this is what I'm going through, or that is what I'm going through. So it is very, very useful, because when you go to them, whether it's a domestic problem or a problem that is work related, you would definitely find somebody in GNA who would be able to support you. Again, GNA delivers sessions that promote our learning as nurses and keep us up to date with current issues in nursing. It signposts members and non-members, which would include internationally educated nurses and midwives, if they have specific issues related to nurses that need to be addressed. Again, Auntie Jo mentioned quite a lot of the difficulties that internationally educated nurses go to, and I personally cannot see anything that an internationally educated nurse would go through that GNA would not be able to support with. GNA also seeks to promote the ongoing well-being of members, their friends and families, both in Ghana and the UK. So assuming that you have got your letter to come and work in the UK and you contact some of us GNA members, assuming the letter is not very clear, like me when they said, oh, bring warm clothes. If GNA was there, I could have called to say, oh, is cardigan enough? And they would have explained to me that, no, warm clothes mean more than a cardigan. So if you are an internationally educated nurse here or wherever, as far as you are Ghanaian, there would be somebody in GNA to be able to support you. I find that also GNA supports with continuous professional development. So if you are internationally educated nurse, you get your registration, they would be able to support you with your career and guide you with your career aspirations and advancement in or whilst you are working or into retirement, as Auntie Martha mentioned earlier on. Auntie Martha herself is retired, but is so thoroughly enjoying the benefits that come with being a GNA member. Again, Auntie Martha mentioned that GNA promotes the Ghanaian culture and traditions within the diaspora through welfare and social community activities. So it's really, really, really useful. I mean, I find the benefits, this is not an exhaustive list of the benefits that I've gone through. So please, 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 if you're an internationally educated nurse, please contact GNA and we'll be able to support you.
Thank you. Thank you, Irene, for giving us that informative information, isn't it? Like even over here, you have 3 sets of clothing, isn't it? You have clothing for winter, you have clothing for summer, and you have clothing for spring as well. So when they say bring warm clothing, you have to have 3 sets of them. And otherwise, what you wear in winter, you cannot wear the same when it's summer. So all this advice, and also you have elaborated, you know, the support available and the importance of having that support, you know, somebody who will have your cultural understanding what you might be going through as well. I think Elizabeth has raised her hand up. I'll come back to you for any question once we finish. So hold on to the question until Elizabeth, I'll come back to you to give you opportunity to ask your question. But Irene, can you also give advice? What advice would you have for any Ghanaian internationally educated nurse or midwife who aspire to migrate to England?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Very interesting. Again, I think my fellow panelists have covered some of this, but I would elaborate a little bit on some of these points. Obviously, moving to a new country can be tough, especially as an overseas nurse, because nursing itself can be challenging and coupled with coming to a new country. So it's extremely important to do your homework. Again, at the moment, you've got the IELTS and the other exams that you have to sit before you are even accepted by the NMC as your proof of proficiency in effective English communication. And it's not just that. I mean, apart from getting your IELTS and other exams recognized by the NMC as your proof of effective English language communication, I would say that, I mean, now there's Google. Our time, we had nothing like Google. You'd be lucky even to have a mobile phone. So Google and some of the terminologies used by people in this country, Auntie Jo mentioned that if somebody asks you, go and get me a cuppa, I mean, you'll be thinking, what on earth is that? But if you have done your homework and you realize that, oh, if somebody asks you, go and get a cuppa, it's go and get me a cup of tea, you would understand. Again, when I first came, somebody died on the ward and said, oh, go and give the relatives a cups of tea. And I'm like, oh my goodness, in Ghana, that's the last thing that you would go and give to relatives. So it's important to do your homework to find out some of the things that might be different culturally here to what we do in Ghana. Auntie Jo mentioned about the shift patterns. I mean, in Ghana, I doubt that they do these long 8-hour shifts, 12-hour shifts. When I was doing 12-hour shifts, I found that it's not just 12 hours. It could be about 14 hours leaving home, getting to work. Because if it takes you an hour to get to work and then another hour to come to work, that's 2 hours on top of the 12-hour shift. So that can be very, very, very challenging. So it's important that you find out how to effectively get through some of these difficulties. Again, associations like GNA can give you some of these tips and can help you get through the necessary exams that are required by the NMC to demonstrate that you can communicate effectively in English. There's also other exams like the computer-based training for NMC to verify your eligibility. And the practical OSCE test as well. Again, GNA has members very experienced in these areas, already supporting internationally educated nurses and midwives as part of their day-to-day job. So it's important that you do your homework, and if you need support in any of those areas, guidance and support to get through these things, GNA is here to support. You also have to make sure that you've got your correct papers. By that, I mean, you are on the right type of visa to enable you to work, because the last thing you want to do is to come and find out that, oh, I can't work. I can't even work as a support worker, let alone anything else. So make sure that you've gone through the right channel. As Auntie Martha said, GNA, we do not recruit nurses into this country. There is an embargo. However, nurses from Ghana can apply themselves, and that makes it a little bit more difficult. So if you are applying yourself and the organization that you are applying to does not give you all the formal support, it is extremely important to do your homework thoroughly to make sure that you are coming through the right channel. Again, on arrival, it's important to ensure that you've done all the correct examinations that you need to go through to get on the NMC. I think I did mention earlier on that it's important you learn the local language. We talked about a cup of tea, where people might say, go and get me a cuppa. I mean, again, when we said, oh, 3 sugars, I'm like, 3 sugars? But yeah, 3 sugars is 3 teaspoons of sugar. And they will say, oh, I would like 3 sugars or 2 sugars or 1 sugar or no sugar. So if they say 3 sugars, it means 3 teaspoons full of sugars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, we've talked about the weather. Do your homework about the weather. Find out exactly what you need when, if you are arriving during the winter, the summer, the autumn. Get the correct clothing. Make sure that you've got the correct clothing. Make sure that also you have somewhere to live, and make sure you have sufficient funds for the first few weeks. I know it has happened to a family member of mine, definitely. An organization came through an organization I didn't know, and this organization said, I'm going to give you XYZ work. Arrived here, and for 2 months had not been able to work not once. And of course, had to pay accommodation, food, transportation, and everything else. So make sure that you've got enough funds, at least for the first few weeks or couple of months before you start working. So these are some of the things, but generally it is important that you do your homework. And again, there are organizations such as GNA, who is an association which is formally recognized by the NHS England and Florence Nightingale Foundation to provide formal pastoral support to internationally educated nurses and midwives from Ghana. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Irene, for giving that exhaustive tips and information, isn't it? If you are aspiring to come to England to work as international nurse or midwife. Thank you. So if I could go back to Auntie Martha, how do you see GNA evolving in supporting international educated nurse or midwives?
I can see it becoming an ongoing project. I know we have been given the funding. The funding is up to 2024. That's what we know at this stage. But regardless of the funding, whether we get the funding or not, we have a duty of care towards our Ghanaian nurses, and that is what we have stipulated clearly in our vision, that we will support Ghanaian nurses and midwives in the UK and outside the UK. So for me and for GNA, our pastoral care has come to stay. We will be supporting nurses as they come in. Again, a lot of people do misunderstand what the funding is for. The funding is for teaching programs, for administrative purposes, for external facilitators, for training the trainers, and also for recreational activities, because that is how we can integrate our newly educated nurses from Ghana who have arrived in the country. That's the only way that we can get them involved and let them know how things are done and how they can mingle with us and the society at large. So, but the funding is not for us to give to people to go and pay their rent if they haven't got money to pay their rent. It is not for us to give to people to buy clothing if they have not got clothing. We have a list of things that we have to do to support the nurses, and these are the support that I have outlined. But if a nurse becomes desperate, I am sure any of us GNA members will be able to support them. We have had cases where members are being kicked out of their accommodation within a week, and we have been able to secure accommodation for them. Again, Irene, you did say about when they are coming in, they should consider funding. When you're coming in, you don't know what you're going to face. And maybe you have even borrowed to pay an agency to come in. So you're sending money back home to pay whoever lent you the money to pay. I have seen something on the chat about how they are not allowed to go on the housing ladder. It's because they have no recourse for public funds. Until you attain your residency, you cannot claim anything via the government. But if you're working, instead of just sending the money home, make sure you secure yourself here before you start sending the money home. And we can give you guidance. We can support you. Experience is the best teacher, and we can always tell you, just take your time. If you have children, because of accommodation and all these issues, wait till you have settled before they come in. And these are things that we will be working on with the internationally educated nurses and midwives. So for us, the pastoral care has come to stay. Funding or no funding, we will support you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Nugent. That is very encouraging and hopeful that although the pastoral team started with the funding from Florence Nightingale and NHS England, however, GNA has recognized that this need is not only for a short period, it has to be a long term, because I'm sure we'll continue to have new nurses and midwives who will migrate. So we need to continue happen. So thank you very much for giving that assurance. And I wonder, Auntie Joy, do you have anything else that you want to also add in terms of how you see DNA?
I have to say is that the internationally educated nurses, when they come over, they need the organization wherever they came to, or if they register with GNA pastoral team, they need a mentor or a coach to guide them to settle in the system, because these facilitators help them to blend into the system well. And some of them are, in the system, don't have any support, although we have been giving the flyers and sending information out. But people, I don't know whether they find it very difficult to come, or they can't get themselves registered on the net for them to join GNA. But my advice to them is that some of them found themselves into the system by through agency. Some of them are working in an organization, or those working in NHS. Every NHS have their pastoral team there. They have also got psychological team, and people must try and assess these groups, because don't just go to work and come home and sleep. The people must be able to ask questions or talk, because this, when you find yourself in a new environment, by talking to people, that is the only way. In my organization, we have got facilitators and managers who ensure that they are directing people, monitoring their visa, because even some of the visas that the IENs have got, they need to be monitored and communicate with the Home Office as the hours that they are doing, and whether they are doing the hours or not. Some of them don't even know that they have to have paid annual leave and all that. So they need to find out, ask questions with their employers. They need to get mentors. They need to have access to training and development as well. These sort of things are very important for their development. With regards to their accommodation, I know it's very, very difficult for them to get accommodation because even one room is over £600 a month. And some of them don't have enough hours. So the more you ask your employers questions and willing to work to be able to pay your rent and buy food to eat is very important. Coaching and getting buddy. I know that some of them, those in London is not very difficult because London is so cosmopolitan that every corner you turn, you might see, especially this time, you might hear somebody speaking your language. You might see a shop selling your food. But those in the Midlands and the villages, they are those that they need to shout for support because I know a lot of them are getting depressed, emotional, find themselves in feeling suicidal thoughts and things like that. So I am also appealing to those listening who are providers or agencies bringing these international educated nurses to be able to guide them, or some of them who have found themselves in NHS. I know NHS, having worked in NHS as an overseas trained nurse, they always support people. The only thing is that we tend to isolate ourselves. You know, when they say they are going out, oh no, I don't go to pop, so I won't go. But if we have to start mixing with the system, it will benefit us. So that's my piece of advice to the international educated nurses.
Thank you.
Atijo, that's very important advice that you've given. You mentioned that you are concerned or worried about those who are not in London. And my question to Auntie Martha is, I know GNA is mainly based in London.
Yes.
How does GNA Pastoral Group able to support the international educated nurses and midwives who are not based in London and might be in Scotland, might be in Wales, might be in Midlands, might be in North England?
The funding came from NHS England. So personally, and I think anybody can be signposted to us. You don't have to be in London. I've had involvement with nurses in Scotland. And we've had a chat about how we can have Zoom meetings with them and give them the support that they need. All the nurses need is to reach out. And from our point of view, what we need to do as well is to keep on publicizing. You don't have to be in London. If you are in England and you're a Ghanaian educated nurse who has recently come into the country, it just takes a phone call. Again, we have sectors. So if we are locating you a body, the sector will be, when you're coming to London, the sector that you are closest to. For example, if you're coming from Cambridge and you're closer to East and Essex sector, you can join that sector. If you're close to North sector, you can join North sector. If you're close to the Northwest, and you'll be supported from these areas. But we need to encourage people to signpost these nurses, because we know they are struggling, but we can't find them.
Yeah.
So we have a responsibility as well to publicize and to reach out to the internationally educated nurses and midwives, because if you don't go to some of them, they will not come to you. So that's what we need to do as well. So I hope this webinar will reach some of the people who do not know about the support that we are offering to internationally educated nurses and midwives.
Thank you. Yes, that's the aim. And as you said, most often is those who need the help that is difficult to reach or find. But we are sure that GNA will continue to publicize, you continue to do more webinars, and you continue to advertise so that our colleagues or the international educated nurses who found themselves, as Antidio mentioned, in the Midlands, in Scotland, in Northern England, or even in Wales and all over UK, will also be aware of the support, which is crucially needed to help. And also, if I could go back to Irene, how can this support in terms of being advertised in Ghana to reach those out there who are yet to come? Do you think there's a need for that?
Of course, there's a need for that. And as I said earlier on, now there's so much, I mean, there are so many avenues that you can reach people irrespective of what part of the world they are. Through Facebook, we've got a we are on Facebook. We've got a Twitter account, we've got a LinkedIn handle. I mean, we've got a Twitter handle, we've got LinkedIn. We've got so many avenues that we can advertise, or people can contact us. And of course, when we finish this session, we would provide our website where you can go and you can access our number. So you can reach us via email, telephone. You can email and contact us via Facebook if you haven't got a means to, I mean, if you've got a means to send an email, then you've got a means probably to contact us via Facebook as well. Or if you can't contact us yourself and you know somebody here, assuming you are in Ghana, you know somebody here, yeah, the person can do it on your behalf. So we can be contacted through so many avenues: telephone, email, we're on Facebook, and we have a Twitter and LinkedIn accounts as well. So there's no reason why you can't reach us. And when we finish this webinar, we will put our contact details on so you are able to contact us anytime. Please, please, please do not wait for the problem to occur. Liaise with us, connect with us so that you have the contact even before a problem occurs. And when you have the contact and you are getting the advice, you would be signposted appropriately. You would get the good advice from a recognized association supported by NHS England and Florence Nightingale Foundation. So you'll be given the right advice, and it will be unlikely for you to get into problems. As I said, I have been here many years, but I am benefiting a lot from the wide variety of support that is provided by GNA. So please contact us. Our contact details are here. So email, website, mobile phone, the chairperson is there, the secretary is there, Facebook, and our office address. So, I mean, there are so many ways of contacting us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, from our panelists, do you have anything that you want to add? For those of you who got your hand up, I'll give you an opportunity to ask your question. I just want our panelists, Mrs. Martha Nugent, Mrs. Josephine Abeville, and Ms. Irene Bonham, do you have anything else that you want to ask or add before we open questions and answers for our...
I have something to add.
Okay.
And
yes.
this goes to other Ghanaian associations. someone may come from Ghana, coming from the Western region. That person will be comfortable with a Western region nurse or joining the Western region Nurses Association. If these nurses come to you and you know they are internationally educated nurses who have just arrived, please signpost them to GNA, and we will work with you to support the nurse.
Yeah. Rebecca.
She's gone.
I'm sure Rebecca is a bit, maybe she has just been called, but I'll just step in. And I can see there are a few people who have raised their hands there.
Okay.
I think I can see Martha, if you want to unmute yourself and contribute if you want, please.
We care.
And we serve.
And we serve.
Right. Mine is just a little bit of addition to what the panelists. Thank you very much for explaining and elaborating what GNA stands for and the support that you are offering to the internationally educated nurses and midwives. One thing that I want to add is that some people think that it's only international educated nurses who are new to the country that we support. No. That is not only the new ones who has arrived or those who are intending to come into this country. What I really want to encourage all of us who are international educated nurses on this platform is that you have been in the NHS 2 years, 10 years, you are still in Band 5, you are struggling, your mental health and your well-being and other things that maybe your career progression. I would suggest that you reach out, because there are very, very experienced nurses in GNA who can be your mentor, who can be your coach. Don't just sit down in that corner alone whilst there is a help in GNA. I just want to encourage and want us to really spread the word to our other colleagues who are in NHS and maybe don't know how they can progress in their career, to use the GNA support, because there are a lot of experienced nurses in GNA. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. I can see Rebecca is back here.
Yes.
Before I hand it over to Rebecca, myself, I'm not internationally educated nurse, but I am one of the nurses, and I'm with the GNA, and I'm with the pastoral group. And I would encourage anyone who is on this line just to reach out to the pastoral, because I'm a ward manager actually. And I have been seeing a lot of people who has just come into the country who are working on the ward. Some have worked many years and they just stuck to being Band 5 and they just don't want to move on. So it's just a courage, having a mentor, someone who can just push you, a little push, and you can just get out there. So I would enrich anyone who is online who needed a mentor, just reach out. GNA is there, the addresses is there. I'm the secretary, my number is also there. You can always reach out and we can always help you out. Rebecca, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tina. We've got Auntie Elizabeth Hackman. You got your hand up. Your question.
Yes. Thank you. Just a contribution. I know Sister Martha has emphasized that GNA is not recruiting nurses from abroad, from Ghana, and two, that the pastoral service is there to support and not financially, like helping people to pay for their university education. She's made that clear. But one thing too that I want to bring to people's attention, especially the nurses planning to come across, whether they are coming by themselves or through an agency, the pay that they are quoted at home, they shouldn't get too excited about. In that here, there's so many deductions, plus you're going to pay national insurance, accommodation is very expensive. So these are the things that people have to take into account, that if you're going to, you are quoted, you're getting 100, let's say £100 a month, it doesn't mean you're going to get £100 in your hands. And then also the way we communicate at home, sometimes we may feel we have to shout to be heard. You can be assertive, but not aggressive, because the staff may say, oh, they are very aggressive, you can't talk to them. But that's not intentional. Sometimes it's just the way we communicate at home, and we tend to bring it across. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, Auntie Elizabeth Hackman. Thank you for your contribution. Very, very helpful advice. I've got Comfort and Info. Do you want to ask a question or contribution, please? Comfort.
It's just a little contribution I wanted to say. I've always been concerned about the loss of the country and in the loss of the NHS or the health sector. So I would say that we should encourage those who are coming in this country, because there's no respect for, the law has no respect for anybody who says, I don't know. So that they should know it, that sometimes things that we're doing in Ghana, you cannot transfer it into this country. So that's my little contribution. I wanted to put it out there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comfort is yes. Once you got your number, you are qualified nurse, there's nothing to say that I didn't know. You've got your responsibility. So if you don't know, you need to ask. Don't make the mistake and say, nobody told me. No, it will still go against you. Thank you very much for that advice. Martha, you still have your hand up. Or
It's a legacy hand.
Sorry, it's a legacy hand. Sorry.
Okay, and any other questions, contribution from our guests, or anybody wants to ask questions or anything at all? I was very sort of excited when Auntie Martha, you mentioned about other Ghanaian Nursing Association, isn't it? Because we know we have the Kolebu Nursing Association, we have the Western Region Association, and we have the Florence Nightingale Association. We don't know about other associations in the Scotland or Midlands or all those. If there are other Ghanaian associations, and as you said, it would be very helpful if they could also be aware of the pastoral support and signpost people for this, because it's very, very important and it's very helpful. Thank you. We have Mr. Hagan, your hand is up.
Okay.
Contribution or question?
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Thank you for all that you have said. Most of what has been described has been describing my life, because I also trained in Ghana and came to work and get my education here. So everything that has been said is absolutely true. But don't let us focus on only the difficulties. I think some of the panel members have told us that there are solutions, and some of those solutions are what we have to explore. One of the things I have personally done is written this booklet, so that when you look at it, most of what has been said here has been summarized in this booklet. For me, one of the things that I want Ghanaian educated nurses and midwives to note is, in Ghana, our belief system is very, very important to us. What our pastor tells us that we are able to do and we should do and things like that are very, very important to us. And our spiritual development is very, very important to us. Unfortunately, in this country, many places don't do God. They don't believe in God, and therefore, if you are going to start a conversation and you start with your belief in God, it puts them off straight away. So you have to be very, very careful about how you put your belief around. All I will suggest, and I've suggested to people who come to courses, is please ask them a question. Ask them a question and let them ask you a question rather than you bombing in and say, yeah, this is what is my pastor has told me, and so and so, and this is what's going to be happening today. So if you do that, especially in your job, you will alienate a lot of people who probably want to believe with you. So I just want to raise the caution, whether you are already in the country or whether you have just come here, is the way you express your belief, your spirituality is very, very important, because it can be caring, but it can also be very, very uncaring and very aloof. And you may be rejected because of that. So be very, very aware about how you project your spiritual beliefs within your work. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Hagen, for that advice as well. Thank you. We have few minutes left as well. So if there's any question or contribution anyone wants, or if our panelists still have something that I think, Irene, you got your hand up.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do have my hand up. Okay. It's just a contribution. Again, it's just echoing what some of our members and panelists have mentioned. It's about career progression. For me, I would say that, again, if you want to progress career-wise, you need the support, mentorship, and all that. But don't be reluctant to apply for any job that you feel that you are qualified enough to. If there's a job you feel that you are qualified enough to, and you feel that you want to apply and you need support, even with the application, one of us can look over it for you. It is important for us to progress. Progression helps your mental health, helps your well-being. You feel confident in yourself. So when you qualify, you register with NMC, don't stay at band 5. Carry on and carry on and carry on and carry on until you get to the highest that you can ever get to. We've got Auntie Martha, who was a very senior nurse before she retired. Auntie Jo, who again was a very senior nurse. Auntie Rebecca is a matron. We've got so many very senior nurses in GNA with a wide variety of experience. So if you want to apply for a job and you feel hesitant, don't be. Let us know, and no doubt Auntie Martha will signpost you to somebody who is appropriately qualified, probably in the field that you want to apply, and they will be able to support you. So that's what I want to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just add to that? Yes. Not just application forms, interview techniques. It's always good to talk to someone about going for interview, because there are certain questions that you just take for granted and think you know the answer. A very simple question like, what are your strengths and weaknesses? And some people go into interviews to say, I have no weakness. Do you know what that means? It means you have no insights. You don't know what your learning needs are. So these are the sort of things that you need to be guided, because it worries me when people have been sitting on band 5 and so I have been applying, and but they don't give it to me. Nobody is going to give it to you. You have to work hard for. So again, these are the sort of things we are here to support you with.
Thank you very much.
I went to a conference once and the director of nursing said something which has always been at the back of my mind. He said, above the sky is your limits.
Thank you.
When you look at all senior nurses across this country, you don't see many Ghanaians.
Yeah.
And I think it's about time we started moving up the ladder.
Thank you. It's a really concern in the NHS, isn't it? The statistics tells us that when you take, there's a lot of us at band 5. When you go to band 6, it's still reduced. Band 7 even less, and band 8. You see just a few people going up. What
you can go to band 9. Why not?
What exactly. Mr. Ken also said that yes, there are challenges migrating to come and work here. However, we shouldn't look at the challenges only. Over here, the opportunities are there, and you need to explore the right support, mentor. I think Irene has mentioned, getting other people to support you, write an application, and actually putting yourself out there. And as you know, Ghanaians, we don't like to shout. I think we've been told not to show up, that we can do things. So even though you have qualification, you have knowledge, you think somebody should recognize that you know that. But over here, you have to tell people that yes, I'm this, I have that experience, and all that calls for mentoring, coaching. We've got the knowledge, we've got the skills. What we need is that mentoring and coaching. So yes, you migrate to come to UK. Initially, challenges to settle. However, don't stay there. Tap into the availability of support, mentoring, coaching, and then we want to see everyone going up to band 9, as Auntie Martha has said.
And my last message for you all is think personal development, think professional development, think career progression, and move on. We can do it.
Yes, okay.
And I would add that it is possible. We've all been there, we've gone through the challenges, but you know what? It's not all negative, it is positive. And you will see that you'll be smiling at the end of it all. There's always light at the end of the tunnel.
Well done.
Okay, Auntie, Mr. Hagen, I think you've got your hand up, or is it a legacy?
One of the things that we are hearing about in life is mental health. And I just want to leave this seminar with an awareness that Auntie Martha was talking about, that mental health is about the pain you are going through that can be turned also into pleasure. GNA wants to enable all who come into this country to work as nurses to have some pleasure around it. It's not work, money all the time. Sometimes you may get all these things, and so be a very, very sorrowful, unhappy person. Even in those times, GNA will have somebody who you can talk to uplift you. So that's whenever you hear things about mental health and it affects my mental health, it is because you are anxious. And there are so many things that we can help you to do to be less anxious about. And so open up yourself, whether you are already in the GNA or whether you are a new person coming to here, we all have some anxiety, which causes a lot of pain. And I'm talking about pain and pleasure. So anything comes to your life and you feel either pain with it so that you don't want it, try and find out whether GNA can find something which will give you pleasure. Knowledge, skills, experience, these are all some of the things that can give you that pleasure. Seek it, and those who seek, they find. Knock it, and those who knock, things are open to them, isn't it? So I'll stop preaching now and then leave it to you with them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hagen.
And remember, we are also reaching out to newly qualified nurses and not just internationally educated.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
And what I also want to add is that I know that we are talking about NHS, but we have got some of our internationally educated nurses in health and social care, because most people leave NHS and come to health and social care. And those in health and social care also have career pathways. So what my advice to people is, our nurses, internationally educated nurses, is that they must read policies and read on how to navigate their way through the system, because they have come with nursing midwifery and they know that, yes, they are getting the money, but they must use some of the money to start developing themselves, because you cannot get into the system if you don't do your CBT and the OSCEs and all that. So they must read, and they should not be so excited with the money and how you can multiply and it will be more than in Ghana. And also when they must have time to rest as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Any question at all or any contribution from the? Okay. Thank you very much for joining us. This is our first webinar, and we hope we have, as Auntie Martha, Auntie Joe, and Irene have said, they are all, they started as international educated nurses. At the moment, Irene is head of occupational health in a university. Auntie Joe has set up her own business, health social care, and she's the CEO. And Auntie Martha also is chair of GNA, and I've got a lot of experience as specialist palliative nurse. So you can see how higher you can go. The sky is the limit, but you must seek that help, as Mr. Hagan said, seek advice and seek the support that is available. Thank you all for joining us this evening, and we hope to run more of this session. So look out for the advert. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
I think are the panelists staying for?
Yes, if I could have the panelists to stay for debrief, please.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
Auntie Tina.
Yes,
Thank
I'm
you.
right here. I'm waiting.
Okay.
Well done, everyone.